Hey, good people, let's get straight to the poop on that cold steel knife I made. We're going to talk about the company, a few of their designs, and I have some secret footage to show you of some of the problems I found when taking those rascals apart. But first, I want to take a few minutes to tell you why I hated my first custom knife. 10 or 12 years ago, I was flopping around different survival forums trying to crank up interest in our survival store, the one my brother and I had just started. And I was making a complete nuisance of myself. I ran across some trolls who were tight with the admins on a particular board, and I got really close to getting kicked off. One of the trolls made and sold some custom knives, and I thought that was pretty cool. He's had some YouTube videos and things. Some of you might recognize his name if I threw it out there, but I'm not going to do that. When this all went down, YouTube was really in its infancy, so primarily his outlet for his knives was posting pics on various forums, which he did. He made a lot of stuff from old saw blades, and when one became available, I bought it. I thought it looked pretty cool. I'd never owned a custom knife before, and I thought, it could smooth things over on the forum. It didn't. I got kicked off the board. So the knife arrives, and I was really excited to open it up. It was about a 2.5-inch long blade, very thin because it was made from a saw, but also very wide. Probably, it had to be over 1.5 inches, probably 1.75 inches. I want to say maybe even 2 inches at the ricasso. At any rate, the handle was very thick. It was a full-tang knife made from a piece of wood whose natural shape was clearly short and fat. So the handle was wide to grip and squatty, and it knobbed up in your hand. And it was, basically, after I got my hands on it, it lost all of its attractiveness. I think mostly because it was entirely unusable. The blade shape was bad, the handle was dumb, and all these nice curves and pretty handle material gave way to a functional mess. And I put it in a drawer for a few months. I stumbled across it later, and I dulled it on the concrete and threw it out. It was just a complete waste of about $120. Let's talk about that Cold Steel. Cold Steel knife video was mostly about making a statement regarding Cold Steel's willingness to enforce their trademark on the term San Mai, which they claim only they can use to describe a 3-layer steel construction knife. So a few years ago, and about a decade before that, they sent out cease and desist letters to multiple custom makers who called their knives San Mai in the title, basically. So this has obviously left a very sour taste in everyone's mouth, as the term predates their company by 1,000 years. Shenanigans and monkey shines, which is why I took to contrasting steels from different blades and made a cold steel knife using the San Mai construction technique to chop turkey dogs on a sandal instead of meat in a boot. One of the most ridiculous and memeable cold steel knife demonstrations ever recorded. Cold Steel. They have a knife for every occasion, and it sort of shows. They have this menagerie of products, and I'm imagining that keeping up with new designs and new ideas and new steels and maintaining a hyper-competitive price and some inventory that makes sense has just been too much of a challenge in some cases. In manufacturing, you have low price, fast manufacturing, and quality, but you can't have all three at the same time. If you're lucky, you sort of get two of those things. And we'll get to some specific examples of what I mean in a minute, because I think quality can be lacking. But first, my take on the company and their knives as a whole. For the money, I'd say their budget stuff is okay. I feel the same about them as I do Gerber. They're using budget steels or dressed up budget steel, combining it with mass production, and actually some pretty good molded sheaths and handles. To be honest, I've said this about Gerber, but the sheaths and the handles are worth the price of entry in a lot of cases. Unfortunately, and sometimes the knife design and the steel associated with those two things are not that great. But as long as you know what you're buying, that's fine. Cold Steel has sort of struggled in design in many cases, though. And I have brought this up in the past. We used to sell their stuff at knife shows and in our store. And they had this kudu ring knife, which is a stylized knife from South Africa. And it was 100% astoundingly dangerous. Like I cannot tell you how many people almost cut their fingers off trying to open and close it by pulling that dumb ring. And then they have this 100% silly Bushman Bowie that is just a mess of a design, yet incredibly popular. The Bushman is this spear with a hollow point handle that has no actual way to attach it to a piece of wood. I don't know why anyone's not paying attention, but there's no hole for a bolt. There's no lashing points. There's nothing. You're just sort of left with forcing a stick in a hole and using homemade wilderness pine cone resin. It's a very thin knife too. It's under 1/8 inch thick. and it has this sort of crazy razor thin hollow grind that will just get dinged to heck if it's chucked in the dirt or deflects off a bone or whatever. Is it sharp? Oh yeah, it's sharp. It's a great slicing knife. Processing wood with a knife that thin, that's hollow ground, why not? It's like $18. Do whatever you want with it. Maybe that's why people like it. It comes with a fire steel and a blade coating that won't allow you to use it. They've made some tried and true fixed blades over the years, some good hunters. We had some of their hunters were fairly popular among the people who used them. Their SRK, obviously very, very popular, and their top-line Kukri machete. Some of these things were fairly quality, and remain to be fairly quality. They aren't afraid to use good steel, and the truth is, I think for the money, a lot of their folders are very competitive as well. They've always had, some top-of-the-line folders, especially, probably 3 or 4 models that they've just sort of perpetuated and redesigned over the years that have just been real tried and true pieces. And they're starting to use high-end steels. They have the CTS XHP steel now that they're clinging to, which is a very high-grade steel. So, overall, if you can stand their marketing and unfriendly business practices and avoid some of their really gimmicky nonsense, I think you can find value in the right cold steel product. Just know what you're buying. As far as the knives in my cold steel Sanmai video, the Black Bear appeared to me to be differentially hardened, which I think is really interesting. You can see me sort of scratching the soft area on the spine. That's under 40 HRC, and then you go over to the edge and it's very hard. The guard of the Black Bear has a few issues overall, but you know what? For what it is, it's probably A-okay. The Bushman, I was surprised. It had a lot of issues under the finished. You can see that there's some gouges here. That gouge has coating in it. That was covered up. Yeah, man, it's crazy, isn't it? And there's another view on the grinder where you can see all those small, tiny gouges that have coating filling them. There's some areas in the handle which are pretty questionable, especially where they weld this stuff together. There's some cracks and stuff in there. So, again, $18. Fine. I guess it's fine for $18. But, I would say overall, they're, you're not getting a quality made product on this low end stuff. So that's it, guys. That's sort of my cold steel wrap up. I say, as with anything, if you know what you're after and you know what you're getting, go for it.